Christian Parenting.
We just celebrated a wedding in our family, and we want to tell you all about it. Join us today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Ray Reno. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Reno, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Rob Reno here with Visionary Family Ministries, here with my bride, Amy. It's been a little while since we've both been able to be here in the studio together, but we've had good reason for our crazy schedule over the past couple months. Our daughter, Lissy, got married first week of September, and we are still in some ways in the afterglow of that amazing day. And we thought today we would just share some stories, some moments, some reflections with you. But before we jump in, I want to encourage you to check out an online parenting event coming up October 15th from our ministry partners at Christian Parenting. It is the Perfectly Imperfect online event. There's a great team of speakers and topics talking about parenting preschoolers through adult kids, taking on tough topics of sexuality, helping our kids handle their money, navigating the crazy world of tech, and most importantly, how to help your children and your whole family grow in their faith. So the website is perfectlyimperfect.org. That's perfectlyimperfect.org. You can get your tickets for this. You can have an all-access pass to the speakers and the messages starting October 15th, and you can watch those messages anytime till the end of the year. And we'll be telling you more about that in the next episode as well. Okay, honey, let's talk about this wedding day. First, you were gorgeous. You had the opportunity to sing in the wedding. This is one of my favorite stories. You and Lainey.
Just a little bit.
You and Lainey, our 17-year-old daughter, sang a song called The Blessing. And you sang it at the end of the ceremony. And later during the reception, one of the guests, this was a friend of the groom's family, so I didn't know them, but I was talking with them. And they said, now, were those two of your daughters singing there at the end? And I said, well, my daughter and my wife.
Yeah,
but you were just stunning.
I just keep I'm still wondering, are you being completely honest with that story? I can't believe that, but very nice thought. That's wonderful. That was great. That,
well, you
that
were
he
unbelievable.
thought well, I guess the hair and makeup was worth it that day. That's great.
Well, tell me, what was one of your special memories from the day or just the time leading up to the wedding?
There are so many. It is hard to capsulate. But at one point, the month of August really turned into just intense wedding prep. And for those of you who understand weddings and the costs of weddings these days, you will appreciate the fact that we had a barn to do a wedding in, but it wasn't a venue, which meant that we were really responsible for bringing our own tables and our own chairs and our own dishes, and let alone the decorations and how we were gonna. I did get a caterer to save myself some sanity.
Well done, by the way.
But was wonderful. It was Cuisine America. I can't say enough about it for those of you in the local area. Cuisine America was wonderful. But it was really quite an event, and it was just I felt like every waking minute of my mental energy to keep planning all of this. And at some point, you hear this a lot in our culture, like, what happened to weddings? They used to be, more simple, and why does this have to take so much time? And I was kind of falling into that a little bit, like, yeah, that's right. And then it was really encouraging because the Lord, I felt like through my quiet times, and the Holy Spirit just said, these are only going to happen, we have 7 children, so we get to do this, hopefully, if God wills, 7 times. But they are pivotal life events. And I started thinking about it, how, Jesus' first miracle was at a wedding. It was a really big deal. And we think our weddings are complicated. Well, it used to last a week, So we come by this very naturally through history, that weddings are supposed to be really grand events because you're celebrating this incredibly important transition. So I think part of my special memory is that when the Lord really helped me embrace all of the work and everything, is just that we were really celebrating something that's so special that we won't be able to do that often. And it was glorious. It was wonderful. Everything exceeded our expectations, and just having that perspective that we were having this very momentous celebration of these two wonderful, our daughter Lissy and Bond, and being able to celebrate them starting their life together, and also celebrating what God has done through this institution of marriage. And I have to thank my wedding coordinator for that too. Her name was Mari. But Mari had a great moment with me where I realized how important this position is when she just kind of came alongside. As you know, she came alongside the last 2 weeks to kind of help us, which was wonderful. But she just came alongside to remind and said, all this is about glorifying God. And it really is. That's what a wedding ceremony should do. So I thought, wow, a wedding coordinator can mean so much more than just coordinating colors and dishes.
Well, you mentioned the possibility of 7 of these in our life. Now, of course, our oldest son, R.W., got married a year ago to Emily, and now Lissy just 3 weeks ago to Bond. But
I want to clarify, that wasn't a year ago. That was 11 months ago. So it's 2 weddings in 1 year. So it's a little bit, you know what I mean? Like it really has been.
October 2020 and September 2021.
Yeah, so it was a lot of change for an 11-month time period, that I will
Right, but
say.
we have 4 boys and 3 girls, and so the idea of 7 weddings, one thing I learned for sure is that the wedding of the son is very different than the wedding of the daughter. Now, not just financially, obviously, but as a dad, like the giving of the son and the giving of the daughter, 2 totally separate things. Like with their son, if he's following the Lord, he's ready to get married, he's got a godly young woman, they're ready to get married. I was with RW, I was kind of like, all right, kid, well, go get him. This is going to be great. And I was excited and praying him out, but it was sort of like, all right, you're ready. But then...
Okay, but that's not how I was with the son, right? Much more emotional.
The opposite sex parent has
That's important for people to understand.
The trauma.
Yeah, it's very different. I was much more emotionally, and first of all, I think the first wedding is also very different because your family is going through that change that just seems, okay, this child is no longer under your roof or under your care, and that is quite a change for the whole family. I think for us having the second wedding so close, it was a little easier. Like people kind of accept, okay, now we know what this looks like a little bit. We're not saying goodbye completely. We are gaining another child into our life. We're a little more aware of what that can look like. But yes, there's a big emotional difference between you and me versus son versus daughter. Yeah.
So there's a huge emotional difference in the giving of the daughter. But one of the questions that I would get leading up to the wedding, of course, is, are you stressed? Are you stressed out? And there was stress on planning and logistics and all of that. But honestly, at the end of the day, I wasn't stressed out going into the wedding because the only thing to really get stressed and anxious about when it comes to the wedding of a child or particularly a daughter is what kind of a man am I giving my daughter to? And with Bond, he loves the Lord. He loves Lissy. We know his family. So a father's anxiety is 99.9999999% tied to who is this man that I'm giving my daughter to. So it was an honor to be able to put her hand in his.
I'm laughing at that because, that's not exactly what my stress was tied to, which was more like, is the appetite charcuterie going to happen on time? All those little logistics and things.
I don't even know what charcuterie, I don't know how to spell it. I don't even know. I still don't know what it is. It's like a wood block of food or something.
The level of the sequencing of all the events and all the things you have to think about causes the mother of the bride a lot of significant stress.
And you did awesome, by the way.
Well, I know that I realized how important family and friends are. Another thing, I think weddings, funerals really teach you how important it is to, rely on your family and friends. And I really could not have done, people are like, oh, you did a great job. Well, I just feel very humbled because it was so much of the people coming beside me and taking care of things that I could not do. And just the value of wonderful family and wonderful friends. But another thing that really was a highlight for me was that rehearsal dinner that Bond's of course, his family put on. But one thing that you don't really know going into the wedding weekend is, you're still learning a lot, because you learn going through that weekend, like you get to meet the groomsmen and you get to meet people that you haven't met yet that you're actually going to all share this wonderful experience with. And we did this, at our W's rehearsal, and it was neat to see it with Bond's parents putting on that rehearsal dinner. But they did open sharing, where people are getting up and sharing stories about, stories about Bond, and Lissy's having her friend share a story about her. And just some of the things that we learned at that rehearsal dinner just blessed my heart so much. I mean, Bond's dad's story about him in junior high, the type of boy that he was, things that even though they've been dating for a long time, I didn't know about
That story
Bond.
was he was in a track race
Yes.
and was favored to do very well in the race. And all the folks, it was cross country, so all the folks are coming across the finish line and their Bond was not there. Well, it's because he had stopped back in the race to help a friend that had fallen, and as a result kind of given up his opportunity to get that high place.
Yeah, gave up the opportunity, but then the coolest part about that story was that when an adult came to help his friend, he got up and finished the race full speed like it never had happened. And that was such a precious story that we got to hear about Bond that I don't know if we would have heard outside of that occasion. Then also just hearing his roommates speak of him and telling some stories that were so encouraging. So I was very blessed in particular by the beginning of the whole weekend with the rehearsal dinner and what was shared there. It just made me I was already excited for them to get married, but it did make me even more excited.
I was concerned about my emotional breaking points. I had a lot of roles to play. Obviously, father the bride, but they also asked me to officiate the ceremony. So I have to lead the rehearsal. I have to walk her down the aisle. One of the things that I really loved is because this was outside, we had a very, very long walk.
Yes, it was very
long.
long.
And I loved it. I just was so happy for that moment. And, there were a couple times on the walk that, rather than just keep my eyes straight ahead, I just turn and kind of look at her to try to soak in that moment as much as I could. And people have asked, well, if you officiated, how did all that work? So the way it worked is that Bond's father, Brad, was up in the front with the groomsmen, normally where the pastor would be. And I walked Lissy down the aisle, and when we got up to the front, Brad said, "Who gives this woman to be married to my son?" And I said, "Her mother and I hugged and kissed Lissy and gave her over to Bond. And then Brad sat down, and then I took the pastor officiant place. And it was unbelievable. During the ceremony, one of the scriptures that they had chosen to have read and to have me talk about was from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, where it talks about two are better than one. And then it concludes in verse 12 there by saying that a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And so one of the things that I did in the ceremony is to have 2 cords with me. It contrasts the strength of a 2-stranded cord with the strength of a 3-stranded cord. And so I had the cord of 2 strands and grabbed each end. And if you pull a cord of 2 strands apart, it unravels and pulls apart. But if there's a cord that has 3 strands in it, if you pull 2, it pulls apart a little bit, but that 3rd strand holds it. And the principle there in the scripture is the centrality and the need to have Christ woven through a marriage relationship. That it's not enough just to have 2 people who love each other, 2 people who are committed to each other, but it's 2 people who love Christ and love each other, 2 people who are committed to Christ and committed to each other. What was your highlight from the ceremony?
Well, to be honest, the ceremony itself was probably the highlight for me of the whole event. And your message was just wonderful. But there were a few things that stood out that really, during that ceremony, that really spoke to me. One was Bond's independence when the wedding coordinator, typically the groom is supposed to come in first. And he had told Mari that he didn't want to come in first. He wanted to come in last. I thought, that's kind of interesting. Well, he came in last so that he could greet all the groomsmen and give them a hug and kind of thank them for being there to stand up with him, and I really thought that was special and unique. The other thing that made it so special is that Lissy had chosen this song, How Beautiful, by Twyla Paris, which was the song at our wedding.
Right.
She chose it because it was sung at our wedding, and she had my nieces, Star and Margot, they were playing the strings as she walked down to that song, with the strings. And then during the ceremony, having Lainey, her sister, sing How Beautiful was probably one of the most emotional and significant parts of that ceremony. If you get a chance to listen to this song, How Beautiful by Twyla Paris, it talks about the beauty of the body of Christ, and a lot of different analogies in that song, but one of them is about the radiant bride. And having Lainey sing that with all the emotion that she brought and those words that are so powerful, honestly, I think we could put that up on YouTube or something. It was just incredible, the power that the words of that song and the moment, I just don't think it could have been expressed any other way. It was just incredible.
It was really special. So a couple final thoughts. One thing that really surprised me, I had in my mind, I had 5 emotional collapse possibility moments. I had the reception or the rehearsal. I had the walk down the aisle. I had the message. I had the toast, the father of the bride toast, and then the dance.
Right.
The father-daughter dance. I thought all of those could end in a challenging way. But the dance really surprised me with Lissy. Now, I am not a dancer. I have gifts in other areas.
That is a true statement.
And so one thing I was
really... You're getting better all the time.
Thank you, sweetheart. All the time, getting better.
Steps in the right direction.
One thing I really appreciate with Lissy, because I think some daughters, Lissy's a dancer. So,
right.
There was a scenario where, hey, Dad, we're going to learn to dance and we're going to do a whole deal.
Yeah.
She was very loving and didn't ask me to do any of that stuff, which I really appreciated. But one thing I didn't expect during our dance, which was just 3 minutes or so, there was such a sense of closure.
Yes.
Which I did not see coming at all. Obviously, it's toward the end of the night,
yes.
Okay, and the ceremony's over, and she's now Mrs. Bailey. But the warmth and love, that I felt from her, and hopefully she felt from me at that time, and this real sense of, okay, this chapter of father-daughter's closed, and now she's been entrusted to bond. It was really powerful, really special for me.
And I would second that. That reminded me very much of how important that dance was with RW, and I felt the same thing, that you don't think of things like that as the dance,
right.
having that emotional significance, but it really did, and it is that saying goodbye, and it was, I see what you're saying there completely. I also just want to take a moment to say again, I can't thank my friends and family and the Hansen family who allowed us to use their barn, and these names don't mean things to people, but they mean a lot to me, with the Bickharts and the Nelsons and the Thompsons and Denise Davis and Buki and Joyce. I could go on and on. I'm fearful saying names because there's so many people to thank. Gatherings florist and Ashley Bowling, our photographer, they all contributed. It really is it takes a village, I think, to have a wedding. I'm not sure it takes a village to raise a child, but I've been saying that it takes a village to have a wedding for sure. At least it did in our situation. So I felt so overwhelmed with gratitude that day. And I have to thank Lissy because she was a joy to work with. And it has its challenging parts. I think every mother and daughter need to know that planning a wedding is something you would like to do once and you want to enjoy it, you can, but you really don't want to do it again because there's some really difficult things about it as well. And Lissy brought so much fresh perspective, and we had our moments that were challenging and then we worked past them. And so that Lissy made the job of Mother of the Bride a very wonderful job.
Amen. Well, it was an amazing day seeing this next generation launch. And as parents, it is the real time to celebrate when you see your child take the baton of faith right into the next generation, and God makes this new home with this couple that loves Jesus and loves each other. So I'm sure there's going to be more memories and sharing in future episodes as we have this journey now with 2 married children. And we want to encourage you. Maybe you've got a family member who is engaged or considering engagement. Tell them about our Preparing for a Visionary Marriage video Bible study. It's a downloadable, streamable video series, 9 sessions capturing a biblical Christian view for marriage. It's got a free PDF workbook that goes with that and questions that the couple can use to grow closer to each other. And you can get that at visionaryfam.com, visionaryfam.com. And another encouragement to check out that Perfectly Imperfect online event. That's at perfectlyimperfect.org, the October 15th launch of this online parenting event. You're going to get equipped and you're going to get encouraged. So check it out and make sure you join us for our next episode on Family Vision.